They never do. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the post Christmas edition of Under the Dome. We all had a Christmas present a little early. Got it Christmas Eve when we beat the Falcons um, and secured a playoff spot. Not a wild card or division title yet. We will find that out next week after we play the Bucs and what happens between the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons. Who will we be playing? Assuming we win that game, and we will be division champs. But all that gets settled next week. Anyway, if we haven't said it already, Merry Christmas. Hope you guys had a great holiday. And Sean, how was your Christmas?
Silent night. And that's a good night at Christmas time for me, man. We had a fantastic Christmas holiday, and it ended on such a high note. And I thank my 5-year-old son Drew for the visual aid here.
Oh, that's pretty badass. I like that. I like that.
He does it. We concluded our holiday last night with going to see The Last Jedi. I highly recommend that. But we're here to praise the saints, not to bury them.
Now we could have
that was a sad attempt at a Shakespearean.
I would say so.
Segue.
I would say so. We
won, man. We won.
Yeah, I could have. We could have a whole entire chat just on Star Wars. Just to be honest with you, it was very enjoyable to see the way we won.
Yes.
I'm following on Twitter as the game progresses, and I'm watching the Falcon fans bitch about the penalties, and I'm like, hey man, karma's a bitch. You got all the breaks 2 weeks ago. This week we get the breaks. And I tell you, and I said this during the game. I said this in my post-game analysis when I did my good, bad, and ugly. I thought Manti Te'o played games as a Saint. He was all over the field, really shut down the run for the Falcons, and it really put a lot of pressure on Matt Ryan ball game. There were 2 turning points in the game. The first one was what has been now called the butt pick, the ass-terception, the buns of steel. We've had every nickname in the world for interception by Marshawn Lattimore, where it was laying on his backside, and he was still able to pick that off. And, the origins of that play really come from the fact that the Falcons made a mistake in personnel, and you had David Hall go out there as a third wide receiver, and their best receiver, Julio Jones, was on the sideline. Yeah. So you had Hall running that deep, out in route, and he knocks the ball up in the air. And that was really huge because here we had that 16 play drive where we only got a field goal out of it. And it was an ugly series at the end because, you had first on that 4th down play a little early, Brees stumbles, and really it messes up the timing. So Ingram kind of had to make that first down on his own. And then on 3rd down, 3 plays later, Brees once again is a missed time on the snap. He puts the ball really on Ingram's hip instead of in the breadbasket. It's a fumble. Ingram has fallen the ball. We end up having to settle for a field goal. Whereas at that play, both plays, timing was right. Pete, especially that 4th down play, Pete hits that hole, takes out the linebacker, and Ingram's got a clear shot into that end zone on that 4th down play because the Falcons really bunched in tight. And same thing on that 3rd and 7. That play is timed right. Ingram has a good shot of getting at least 5 to 7 yards and get that first down. So, it was an ugly series. So we get the butt pick, get the ball right back because Atlanta could have taken a 7-6 halftime lead, which really would have deflated all the good work that defense had done all the first half. Instead, we get the ball back. 2 plays later, hit Ginn on a classic score. Now we're up 13-0. Second half. Here comes the second turning point. Breeze throws that pass again. He knocks that one up in the air. Deion Jones, who is now the official Saints killer for the Falcons, gets that pick, brings it all the way down to like the Saints 3-yard line, and the Falcons don't score. The foul of the ball. Freeman fumbles the ball. The guy I said last week was the guy I feared more than Julio Jones. He fumbles the ball. We recover the fumble. Manti Te'o recovers the fumble. And then the Falcons get no points out of that drive. And I'm telling you, as that game unfolded, those are the 2 biggest plays, but as that game unfolded, we're getting closer. It's 13, then it's 20-3. And I'm like going, oh, we've got to get a touchdown. And if we get a touchdown, make it 26, we better go for 2. And make it 28-3. Oh, yeah, because we are trolling the Saints. Trolling the Falcons the entire game. The Saints are trolling the Falcons the entire game. I mean, first, outside the stadium, somebody's flying a banner on the back of a plane that says 28-3, Merry Xmas. Then in the stadium, they do that us versus them, and they do the whole thing. The brown thrasher was the state bird of the Falcons. We have the brown pelican. The cultural differences. They've got Housewives of Atlanta. We got all the stuff that we have, Mardi Gras and all the rest. Then they go defining moment of a franchise. They do the 28-3. And then we do, the block punt, Gleason's block punt, defining moment. Then the nail in the coffin, and of course, just wait, hey. And then they do the whole, Saint Falcons ring. They show the Olympics, Saints ring. Of course, they show the Super Bowl ring. It was just one. And then the 6'10" Stompers spell out 28-3 and a halftime show. And 28-3, I keep saying that stadium roof would have blown off. It was so perfect. I kept saying, this is incredible. I can't believe they're going to let this happen. So it was a very fun game.
Real quick, we want to thank Fan First Productions for being our sponsor. We want to invite everyone to subscribe and join us full time on YouTube and on iTunes at Under the Dome. Invite all of you guys to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And we want to welcome in our very special guest, a friend of the show, always makes by for us, covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll let him, so that I don't screw it up, I'll let him give you all his follow information and what have you. We want to welcome David Harrison. Dave, brother, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, guys. I appreciate you having me on again. It's been too long.
David,
I always like coming on here.
David, I'm sorry. I know we have a limited time with you, but I had to bring up all that stuff about the Falcons because it was
it's good stuff. Yeah,
there's no team to me, that's a rivalry. That's what you do to a rival. You really troll the hell out of them. And that was just such a fun game. But on to our new opponent this week, Tampa Bay. What happened? Oh, I know you have limited time and you can't go for the next 6 hours, but what's going on to Tampa Bay? Because, when we had you on the show for our season preview, hey, man, watch Tampa Bay. They've got a lot of talent on this team. Right. You've got a lot of stuff going on, but it's like that team has just completely come off the rails and fallen apart. And recently, it's a lot of last-second defeats. Mm-hmm. You had the Falcons on the ropes, and they lost. You had the Carolina Panthers, which would have helped us win the division.
Yep.
But y'all had the Carolina Panthers, and then with like less than a minute, fumble and the Panthers take the lead. So what happens? or what happened?
Just the pieces haven't come together, and a lot of it, from the outside looking in, a lot of it looks like coaching issues. A lot of it looks like scheme issues, and that's kind of been our narrative, I guess you could say, for the year. I know narrative is kind of an overplayed word, but that's really what it's looked like to us, is just week in, week out, the Buccaneers come in with the way they want to play ball. I guess you'd call it buck ball if you want to, but the problem is when it doesn't work, they don't do anything to address it. They don't do anything to fix it. They continue to attack the way that they wanted to attack in the first place, and essentially trying to impose their will on the opponent. But this season, it hasn't worked, and their will hasn't been imposed. More often than not, obviously, they've been defeated. And then, like you said recently, here in the last few weeks, a lot of close games, a lot of close losses there towards the end of the game. And that's also been a little bit of a theme, is when they can't put things together, there always just seems to be this late game meltdown, whether it be on offense or on defense or a combination of the two. The first one I can think of was Buffalo. Had the game kind of in hand with an opportunity to really take a victory away on the road and get things on track. The season wasn't lost at that point. There have been some struggles and there were some frustrations, but a win in Buffalo definitely would have helped to kind of mend things. And the way they lost that game just is kind of indicative of the way that the rest of the season has gone. And then, as you saw last week and the week prior, just again, man, just one mental mistake after another, and it's a new player every week or a new side of the ball every week, and just a frustrating season all over.
So,
would you say at the end of the Panthers game, Jameis had not really somewhat. He had an absolute meltdown. It looked like he put a civilian out of commission. What exactly was the issue there? Because I never quite got the gist of it. That happened just as the Saints game was ending, and they switched coverages. Mm-hmm. And when they came on, the fumble had already happened, and they were trying to get Jameis off the field and everything, and was what exactly was all that about?
So Jameis had fumbled. It was his third fumble of the game, and he felt like that when he lost the ball, he had gotten down and gotten on top of the ball and recovered his own fumble. And the officials signaled Carolina ball, which effectively ended the game. There was about 30 seconds left on the clock, and I think the Bucs had one timeout and were trying to, get a last drive, win a last-second win. And with the Panthers having the ball, obviously, 3 downs, kneel down the ball, and it's over. So that is what sparked it. But what I think it really was just kind of just a young guy with a year full of frustration in him. He's got some off the field stuff going on. The team hasn't done what they thought they were going to do, what they were hyped up to do. And Jameis has been dealing with injuries. So it's just a full year of just frustration after frustration after frustration. It was just one more thing. I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. And he kind of lost his head there for a little bit.
Well, that leads to my next question then. What is the future of Tampa Bay? Do you think they're going to make a coaching change, general manager change? Is Winston going to be the guy for this team? Going to happen to this team?
Oh, Jameis Winston is absolutely the franchise quarterback for the team. I don't think there's any real question about that in the front office or even from the fan standpoint. The fans who are kind of down on Jameis Winston are the fans who have always kind of been down on Jameis Winston. They were most likely Marcus Mariota guys to begin with. So that's not really a question. He's going into his 4th year in 2018. I don't see why the Buccaneers as a franchise don't pick up his 5th-year option. He's going to get his entire first contract to, show us what he's got. If we're still having these type of conversations, next year or 2019 even, then maybe that's when we start talking about the Bucs going a different direction. But for now, Jameis is the guy, and I have every confidence in the world that he's going to be the guy for the long term. As far as coaching is concerned, I would be extremely surprised if Dirk Cutter has a job next Monday afternoon. I fully expect that either Sunday night or Monday morning or Monday afternoon at the latest that the Buccaneers will announce that Dirk Cutter has been fired. And, then the rumor mill and the speculation about who's going to replace him will get into full speed. As far as Jason Licht is concerned, the general manager, his option has already actually been picked up. It was picked up over the summer, but nobody really made an announcement about it until a couple weeks ago. So his extension has already been picked up for 2018. And honestly, I mean, everybody that talks about the Buccaneers, it's not a talent issue, it's an execution issue. And it's again everything points back to the coaches. So if your roster is talented, there's no reason to fire your general manager. It's time to find a coach that can make the pieces work. As far as where that's kind of how everything's looking.
Do you have any idea where they would go looking for a new head coach? What would they go to the college ranks? Is there anybody that's kind of like the fan favorite? Somebody they want to bring in as a head coach? I mean, I know. I know John Gruden is always, but John Gruden's kind of been played out with Tampa. I can't imagine Tampa would go back to Gruden. But I mean, is there any kind of coaching, that the fans are really talking up a lot about, or the media is kind of stoking a little bit of a fire about?
Yeah, all signs point to John Gruden. That's
really.
Yeah, that's the word on the street. That's the word. That's actually why I have to get off of here when I do, is because we've got a guest on tonight from a publication who has inside access to One Buck, and we're going to be talking to them. That's back in July. ThePewterReport.com. That's not the website I work for, but another Buccaneers website. Great guys, great friends of ours. They broke the story first. They're like, John Gruden wants to get back into coaching. The Buccaneers would be his preferable spot. But, again, in July, the team was in full hype mode and it was full on playoff mode. Well, now we're here where we are, and all of a sudden that Buccaneers job might be open. So if John wants to return to coaching and the Buccaneers have a vacancy, it may happen.
Wow.
I think that probably that hype was fed along the way with, I watched, I think, most every episode of the HBO thing.
Hard Knocks.
Yeah. I watched most every episode of that, and Gruden made a few appearances on that. It was the Falcons game a week ago. They put Gruden in the Ring of Honor.
Yep.
With Tampa Bay, and I think that's probably helped this along somewhat, not only from the media standpoint, but also from Gruden's standpoint as well. He realizes just how much that organization meant to him and his career.
Well, David, I know you got to run off to that story, so we kind of teased it here a little bit. Quick, give us your prediction, what you think is going to happen on Sunday, and then let your fans know how to follow you.
Yeah, so I fully expect the Saints to win. Our injury reports haven't come out yet for the week, but I don't expect some of these guys like Deshaun Jackson, Robert Ayers to come back this week. It doesn't really seem to be a wise idea as far as the longevity of their health is concerned. And I don't know, how their practice week is going to go. So with considering the shortages, considering everything going on, I fully expect the Saints to win. If I had to put a score on it right now without knowing who's going to play and who's going to be out, I would probably say 31-21 is kind of the best prediction I can give. And then as far as finding me, like I said, I write about the Buccaneers on thepewterplank.com. I'm also on Twitter at DH82_Bucs. And I actually just started writing for another website, lifestylesports101.com. And I just kind of do random general NFL stuff there. So, yeah, that's everywhere you can find me.
Good deal. Well, David, thank you for coming on, sharing a little of your time with us. And we'll see. Recycling coaches generally doesn't work out well. So we'll see what happens on this one. Glad to have you on, David.
Yeah, good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Same to you, David.
All right.
All right. Well,
that was my boss at one time, man.
Well, and here's the thing.
I called him boss one time, and he said, "Don't ever call me that."
I was going to say, here's the thing. The Atlanta Falcons back in the 70s had Marion Campbell as a head coach. And then in the 80s, they brought him back as a head coach. And both times, it really didn't work out well. The thing about Marion Campbell for the Falcons in the 70s, he did have that year in 77, I believe, with Jerry Glanville as the head. When they ran the Grits Blitz, they called it. It was when they do a top 10 listing, you hear like the 76 Steelers, you hear the 72 Dolphins, the 2000 Ravens, I think it is. They go through the top 10 defenses. Well, the 77, to the 2013 is another one.
Yeah.
But when they go through all those defenses, the 77 Atlanta Falcons defense is one of the best. It allowed the fewest amount of points, and I think it allowed the fewest amount of yards that year. But here's the problem. They also had one of the worst offenses in the league. I think that team only went 7-7 because it was a 14-game schedule, not a 16-game schedule. So, I mean, that was the emphasis.
That's a concept that we can relate to from the Dome Patrol days. We had the best linebacker core in the league. The only to my knowledge, and you'll have to correct me on this if I'm incorrect, the only time in history that all four linebackers named to the Pro Bowl were from the same team. Okay.
Still the only time
I thought it
happened.
was.
Yeah. The team sent four linebackers. Not many people played.
We could not generate an offense, which happens when you have a defensive coach.
Right. Exactly. You either have all offense or all defense. Very few teams are totally perfectly balanced, especially in free agency.
Yeah.
But
it's always going to lean toward the tendencies of your coach. If you have, you look at the past 3 years in New Orleans. What has been the overriding narrative? It's always, well, we got Drew Brees. We're gonna be all right. We just need a defense.
Yeah.
And now it couldn't be any further away from that.
Well, we've talked about this all season long, and you saw a little bit of it Sunday too. It's concerning that we have a difficult time pushing the ball downfield. Michael Thomas suddenly had a hamstring issue. He did play, but his snaps were limited coming off of, rib injuries. And you really have Willie Snead has vanished from this offense. After being as effective as he was, we've just never seen that Willie Snead come back in 2017. And, Brandon Coleman does what he does. He's a run blocking wide receiver guy who is going to get limited targets. He's not a speed guy. He's not a burner. He's not anybody. All he can do really is just post up on on defensive backs. Good, couple of passes a game. But his job's going to be out there blocking for the run. Man positions is a disaster right now. So what we've seen, and there was a bit of news. I was looking at some headlines today. There's a bit of news out there. It looks like the Los Angeles Rams are going to sit their starters and basically tank the game against the 49ers. Now,
they weren't going to win anyway.
Well, they're the third seed, but here's the thing. Right now, if we win the division, we're the fourth seed. Seed plays the number 1 seed if you win the wild card game. The third seed plays number 2 seed. Now, the number 1 seed right now is the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you watch that atrocity of a football game Monday night, Christmas night, that game, the Eagles look very, very beatable. The Raiders were giving them a hard time. So now suddenly teams are like, you know what? I'd rather play the Eagles in Philadelphia as my way to the NFC Championship game than to go through Minnesota to get into the championship game, because both the Saints and the Rams have lost to Minnesota. So Rams are playing the odds that the Saints will be the 4th seed. Better than us, we'll be glad to take the 4th seed spot by losing to the 49ers, and we'll go through Philadelphia, let New Orleans have to go through Minnesota. Now, of course, that also means that the 4th seed plays the 5th seed. So in the wild card round, which right now, if the playoffs started today, is Carolina. Atlanta beats Carolina, I believe Atlanta moves to the 5th seed and Carolina drops to the 6th seed. Loses to Carolina. I just want to make sure I got these. I was looking at these playoff scenarios. If Atlanta loses to Carolina, they're out if the Seahawks win. So, there's a lot of things that can be playing out. And you're kind of taking a shot by saying, hey, I'm willing to lose to be the fourth seed and take my chances going through Philadelphia. So that's just the mindset, because I know I want the Saints to go through Philadelphia. I think the Saints match up very well with Philadelphia. At the beginning of that game, the Raiders were trying to run the ball in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia was having a hard time handling Marshawn Lynch. Well, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara are much better backs than Marshawn Lynch at this point. And I think Philadelphia just have a hard time handling that. And Nick Foles is not Carson Wentz. He's not a scrambling quarterback. He holds the ball too long. He is not as accurate as Wentz, which in turn helps your pass rush. Foles, you're going to get a sack because Foles is waiting passing window to develop. He's not going to throw a receiver open. And I know the Rams see that. I know the Saints see that. Whereas when you're looking at Minnesota in that stadium, Minnesota's defense is far more aggressive, far better against the run. And they've got much better receivers than the Eagles have. The Vikings are just a much more dangerous team in the playoffs. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just take care of business. Let's win this week against Tampa. And I think that David seems to feel the same way, that Tampa is pretty much got their bags packed. The coach will get fired Monday morning on Black Monday. Happy New Year. You're fired. I'll be one of at least 10 coaches and get fired. Oh, okay, never mind. I had a message pop up on my screen, and somebody just renamed themselves Fragile. Must be Italian. So,
wow.
Old Christmas Story reference there.
Well, let me ask you this: did you happen to make the game on Sunday?
No, Christmas Eve. I was going to have 17 people in my house on Christmas Day. I just couldn't do it. I had a lot of stuff to get ready. And,
even more reason to run.
Yes, I know. My wife had a lot of cooking she was doing. I was doing the cleaning. But I watched it. I had, as usual, I had it on every TV in the house. Even my youngest daughter was watching the game. And she doesn't watch football at all, not anymore, but she was watching the game and she was enjoying it. I'm telling her, as Manti Te'o is making plays, as Kiaka even played an outside linebacker. And, I was like, yeah, the Saints have like 4 or 5 Polynesian descent play, naming them. And she's like, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm like, well, it's like the Tiki Room, from the old Walt Disney thing in Adventureland. But it was an incredible game. I have to give the fans a lot of credit. They really they came.
Absolutely.
They came to play.
I've heard from several different people that this crowd this past Sunday versus Atlanta was louder than the night that Gleason blocked the punt against Atlanta. Now, I have no way of gauging that, but
well, I was at that game in 2006, and I have a hard time believing that because I'm telling you now, the beginning of the game, yeah, because people were loud. But once Gleason blocked that punt, it took it to a new level. I mean, and from that point on, every big play was just louder and louder and louder. Now, the Saints weren't nearly as explosive as they would later become, but I was there for the 2006 game. I I was there for several of the 2009 games because I still had season tickets at the time. So I was at the Cardinals playoff game, the NFC Championship game against the Vikings, and so forth. And that Vikings game was loud. That was really loud. When especially there's two plays in particular where it really got loud, and it was Reggie Brown when they ruled a touchdown. When picked off Brett Favre, it was loud. Yeah. It was loud for a long time. The kick to win the playoffs in overtime was more joy, not the roar was just not there because I think so many people were just so I can't believe we're going kind of thing,
Yeah. Well, people always ask me, what was your greatest moment as a Saints fan? And, while winning the Super Bowl was awesome, when Garrett Hartley made that kick against the Vikings to actually send us to the Super Bowl, that was almost maybe more so because we were doing something that we'd never done before. Oh, of course, nobody ever could have imagined the Saints going to the Super Bowl. If you watch the highlight film that NFL Films put together, they're interviewing one of the Marsalis brothers at the beginning of it, and he said, "What's to the Bible? Armageddon."
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing that they forgot.
And the Saints win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And
for the longest time, that was the mindset. There's no way possible that these guys will even ever get there, much less win it. And I watched the Super Bowl at my dad's house, which was awesome for me. But when Tracy Porter, they have this L-shaped in their living room at the time. And when Tracy Porter picked off that pass, I went around the couch and all the way around the room and and I ran it all the way in with him.
Well, and, I've told this story several times. I saw the Super Bowl from my my parents' house too. We had a lot of people to watch the game, and my dad was apparently either going to the bathroom or just walking by, maybe to throw something in a recycling bin. Because it's that's the walkway right in front of the TV at his house. And the play happens, and just as my dad's walking, so I'm looking at my dad's back as he's yelling, "Go, go, go!" I'm like going, "You got to move so I can see this." So I stand up, and I'm seeing Tracy Porter right in the end zone. I had to see the replay of it, of that play happen because I didn't see it live. But I got to hold a Super Bowl ticket. Just the company I worked for at the time, the boss took those tickets and went to the Super Bowl, but I got to hold it, took a picture of it. I got.
I went to the Saints Hall of Fame there in the Dome one of the last times I went, and they actually had the Lombardi Trophy in there in a room on display, and there were three very, very large young men that they kind of gauged who got close and who didn't, and I didn't make the cut, and I didn't press the issue any. I took a picture from a long way off, and that was good enough for me. Didn't look like they were up for any funny business, so I left it at that.
Well, it's exciting to talk about instead of this being the last game of the regular season and, like Tampa's doing.
Yeah.
Okay, what are we going to do? Let's start talking about the draft. Is it time? What free agents we're going to sign, all these other things. We're actually talking about the postseason again, beyond just reminiscing about, 2009. So let's look at one thing real quick. If we wanted to rank, and we could talk about this some more next week, but if we wanted to rank playoff teams, Is this probably one of the more complete playoff teams the Saints are sending under Sean Payton? I mean, you had the 2016, 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2013. Those are the playoff teams. Where does this team fit in? Where would you put this team in that ranking?
I would say that, at least from an offensive standpoint, and
Mm-hmm.
I have to stop here and make this caveat. I tend to look at things offensively and defensively, or maybe offensively and then defensively. Offensively, I think this is the most complete team that Sean has under Sean Payton, for the simple fact that you don't have a Pierre Thomas or maybe a Reggie Bush. Kamara gives you such a wild card aspect to that offense, and he's more Bush than Bush was. He's more Sproles than Sproles was. He fits into this offense so much, and I mean, we saw that with the first game against the Atlanta Falcons when he was hurt in the first series, just exactly how much our offense was lacking without him. And when he's in there, he's so much a part of that offense. That offense is not whole with just Kamara or just Ingram. We're going to need both of them for the long run. But I in terms of the big picture, I think this is probably the most complete offensive unit that they're paying. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would if we were better on third downs and if we had a better, more consistent passing game. Here's how I look at it. I think this is a better playoff team overall than the 2013 team. Now, I know that 2013 team went undefeated for a while. I know that 2013 team had like a top 5 defense. But in that 2013 season, they had 2 games. The Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks, where the Saints just got shellacked. We got our butts kicked in the first 2 games of the season, gotten beaten again like that by anybody. Even in the games we lost, the Falcons game and the Rams game, to win those games. In 2013, when we played Dallas and when we played Seattle, we never had a chance to win either of those games. They just totally crushed us from the get-go.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think they're a better team than the 2013 team. I think they're a better team than the 2016. Have a better defense than what they had in 2006. I thought offensively, Sean Payton was doing things schematically that the league had not seen up until that point. And you had Deuce McAllister playing at a high level, but I'm just saying they were doing things with the screen game and with receivers that that hadn't seen. But I thought it caught up to us when we got to Chicago in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
I don't think whether we advance past the wild card round, whether we advance to the NFC Championship game or whatever, I think this is a better team than the 06 team and a better team than the 13 team. I think injury-wise, we're a lot like the 2010 team, unfortunately. We have a lot of injuries that could haunt us in the playoffs. You know, losing Fleener for the year, losing A.J. Klein for the year, losing Vaccaro for the year. That's a lot to overcome. I think we can do it better than that 2010 team can. I think that 2010 team was really worn out over the length of that season.
Yeah.
Breeze was injured. You had no running game left. I think just that team was tired, and it showed when they went to Seattle to play.
Yeah.
2011 team was the best team ever under Sean Payton. I know defensively we weren't nearly as good as we were in 2009, but I thought offensively we were just – it was a machine. That was a machine that was going to be able to score on anybody. And the very fact that we came back from after 5 turnovers, we came back to take the lead twice against arguably the best defense in the NFC playoffs that year. Just says so much about how good that 2011 team is. 2009, of course, we did win it all. So they have to be one of the best ever. But that's our gold standard, the 2011 team. So, my long answer, this is the top 3 teams that we're sending. If we were a better passing team, I would put us up there with the 2009, 2011 team. But I have 11 and 9 right here. Then I've got the 2017 team down here. Let's see what happens in the playoffs. That could move that up, but right now they're down here, and that's just how I see it.
I'll add the caveat to my earlier statements. As team is offensively, I do believe that the depth of the playoffs that they are able to reach will be decided first and foremost by how well this defense produces.
Yep. We get more games like we had against Atlanta, more effort like we had against Atlanta in the playoffs. I think we can go far. But it to me, the seeding is everything, because to go through Minnesota is a lot harder, obviously, Philadelphia right now. And I think if somehow we can stay on the Philadelphia side, and if the Rams can somehow knock off Minnesota, because that's where I want us to go. I want us to go Carolina, beat Carolina, beat Philadelphia, and then meet the Rams in the NFC Championship game in Los Angeles. The ideal way to the Super Bowl. That is the path I want to go through. I would not want to have to go through, let's just say Atlanta beats Carolina, Atlanta makes it in. Rams hit everybody, so we play Atlanta, as a 3 seed, and Atlanta's a 6 seed. I would not want it to go Atlanta, Minnesota, then Philadelphia to the Super Bowl, or Los Angeles to the Super Bowl. I would not want that path, because though that's the hard way. That's a much harder way for me looking at this Saints team than the other way.
I agree.
How do you feel about that, Sean? You agree? Okay.
The only choice we got is to play them as they fall. To be completely, and I've said this all season long, I'll maintain that stance. The only team that matters to me right now is Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because
I get that. I get that.
Tampa Bay and we lay an egg, all hell breaks loose for the New Orleans Saints.
Oh God! If we lay an egg against Tampa Bay and we lose that game, we get seed. Because all we did was secure a playoff spot. We have one division. In fact, there's some kind of scenario where Carolina could end up being the number 2 seed. And you know about this? Had you read about this?
No.
This is Carolina has to win, and I'm sure they're going to talk about this on Cat Chronicles or our sister podcast. But Carolina has to win. I think Minnesota, the Saints, and the Rams all have to lose, and Carolina becomes the 2nd seed by winning the division. I read this. Jeff Duncan, I think, tweeted this. It might have been Jeff Duncan and Nick Underhill, one of those two. But, I mean, I get it. We have to win this week, and then let the rest just play out. But right now, I want to play it as we win the division. We're the 3rd or 4th seed, hopefully the 4th seed, and we go through Philadelphia, and we get to play the Carolina Panthers again in the playoffs. I don't want to see Atlanta again. I don't, I would love to play Seattle, but you know what? If we're playing Seattle in the playoffs, that means we are playing as the 3rd seed, and that means we have to go to Minnesota next. I really don't want to play Minnesota right now. I'd rather play Minnesota in the NFC Championship game if we had to, just because I'd like to have a real bounty system in place, because those son of a bitches are pissing me off again with their whining about the 2009. I'm willing to put a bounty system on there and just, take out Case Keenum, take out Teddy Bridgewater, and just, we'll show you what a bounty system is, because it's just, they still can't get over it. There was a great meme for the Falcons game, and I'm tempted to do this for Minnesota, from pretzels to ocean, how salty are you? That's whining about that. They're still complaining about the illegal hits, and I'm like, really? Because last time I saw it, Brett Favre threw an interception to Tracy Porter by throwing it across his body when you were in field goal range. Brett Berrien fumbled the ball inside the 20 after a deep reception. Adrian Peterson fumbled the ball after Reggie Bush muffed the punt, but you could have taken the lead at halftime. So, get the hell out of here with that, that foolishness about Bountygate and illegal hits. You guys fumbled the game away. You guys blew it. That's what you do. NFC Championship games, you're going to lose another one if you even make it that far. You're not winning the Super Bowl. You're not even going to host the Super Bowl. Get out of here with that foolishness. Happen. Never.
Speaking of salty.
Oh, it's just, it's like blah, 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 blah. It's like the little bratty kid who talks shit behind his mama's screen door and just talks all that shit all day long. You just want to go in there and pop them good. Go show your mommy your bloody nose now.
This segment brought to you by Allen's Daycare.
Yeah, you can't beat them enough, because you beat them again. It's like, if we would have had this, we would have had that, we could have won. Well, if my grandmother had a set of nuts, she'd be my grandfather. That's that kind of thing.
Our buddy Josh that was on here the first time that we played the Falcons, he and I texted throughout the entire game. I actually gave him play-by-play because he had something going on, and he told me that that the Falcons fans were crying about the officials gave us the game or something.
Which was us 2 weeks ago.
That's
it all balances out.
Yeah, well, one thing is for certain, just like the fact that we lost to Atlanta, all that matters in the official league record is there's an L there for this past Sunday for the Atlanta Falcons and a W for the New Orleans Saints. You can cry about it. You can rant, rave, stomp, spit, cuss. It doesn't really matter, because a week from now, it's going to still read the same. A year from now, it's going to still read the same.
That's what we said. Yeah, we said that a couple of weeks ago. In fact, here's the thing. I mean, yes, this was payback. And if you want to play the conspiracist, and I'll kind of buy into it a little bit. We've been flexed to 3:30, right?
Yeah.
The Saints are playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 3:30. Every game this weekend, week 17, that they've flexed to 3:30 is all playoff-related games. They've got more things that have to be decided in week 17 than I think they've had in the past 5 to 6 years since we've gone to this format.
The Falcons game is flexed too.
Falcons-Carolina game.
Yeah.
I am not surprised by this. And the conspiracist in me is saying this is exactly what the NFL wanted. What did I say 3 weeks ago here? The last thing that the NFL wants, season game essentially in week 17, where you're sitting your starters, and like what the Rams are doing. They're sitting their starters, so now they're going to have a crap game. You're not going to have the good game. There's a reason why last week, a lot of fantasy football championship games were played. It's happened traditionally in week 17. If we want to play the conspiracy game, then we can say, okay, the officials called the game a certain way for the Saints versus Atlanta to make that game on Christmas Eve mean something. Tampa got some questionable calls against Atlanta, then against Carolina. That makes that game now mean something for the Panthers and the Falcons in week 17. I mean, you can play this game all day long, but ultimately you have to take advantage of the opportunities presented to you. The Falcons had 2 opportunities to win that game, and they didn't get it. The one was the fumble, and then the one they've been screaming out the most is the Julio Jones touchdown that was not a touchdown. My opinion on that play, if the official was standing right there, if the official on the field calls that a touchdown, then I think the touchdown stands. On the 1-yard line, not a touchdown. Okay? He called him down
and Matt,
at the 1.
Let me interject here. That was the correct call. It's the ball. It's not his feet. It's not his butt. It's not his head. It's the ball. The ball never broke the plane.
Here's the thing. Not only does the ball not break the plane, but when Julio Jones, he's a tall receiver. When he leaps up to get the ball, he leaps from in the end zone. Where he comes down, it's almost impossible to tell if he came down on the goal line or if he came down on the opposite side of the goal line or in the end zone. The official standing right there is looking at the ground where his feet came down. So to me, there's not enough visual evidence to overturn the call that was made on the field. That's why I said if he would have ruled it a touchdown, it would have stood as a touchdown. The fact that he ruled it was not a touchdown, you look at that replay over and over and over again, you cannot tell his feet touch at the time he has possession of the ball. So like you said, the ball never breaks the plane. That is what makes it even harder because now you're looking at where his feet are. And from a straight-on angle, it looks like his feet are in the end zone. But from the side, you can't tell, do his toes touch down there first? Marshawn Lattimore pushed him. So that's why I think that, they stood with the referee that made the original call. They kept the original call.
Well, I just want to say, as much as I hate the Atlanta Falcons, as much as I utterly despise, or in the words of Doc Holliday, as much as I disapprove of their very existence, but props and respect for Julio Jones.
Oh, you got to.
I don't like that I feel that way, but dude,
he is. He got 149 yards receiving. The Saints went to zone to try and handle him. Tyler Gabriel made some good plays.
He got 150 against the best cornerback in football.
Well, they were playing zone on him a lot, trying to limit his damage. So, I mean, he came to play. He made the plays. It's just the Falcons made a lot of mistakes a couple of times. You had that whole thing with between Thomas and I think it was Trufant, where they both got offsetting personal fouls. But it's just every one of those calls they made were legitimate calls. It's just like what I said 2 weeks ago when we played them. Every call, and this is the other thing too, they miss. All those calls were against the Falcons' offense, not defense. Saints. The pass interference calls. Now, I know they're going to point to some play where, and even Charles Davies kept going over and over on this one, where they said that Lattimore got there early and made, drew an interference, should have drawn an interference call, and he didn't draw one. But both defenses play. There were a couple of times where the Falcons were on Saints receivers, and they could have called a pass interference call there, and he didn't call it. They were letting them play on both sides. So it was offensive pre-snap penalties that were hurting the Falcons. It wasn't these, it's time to throw a pass interference on here, or we'll throw defensive holding, or we'll throw illegal contact, or hands to the face, or we'll throw some kind of flag, roughing the passer. Those weren't the calls that were being made. It was pre-snap, a lot of offensive penalties that were hurting them a lot. Freeman got 2 personal fouls alone. That's 30 yards in penalties,
That was almost just him. That was like on the same drive, I think.
Or one, I think there were 2 different, I think they were back-to-back drives. But yeah, the calls bother you. Things that were costing them in the game. It wasn't just the officials throwing flags that were judgment calls. These were, when you do illegal shifts, when you hold, when you have false start penalties, there's no question whether or not they're doing these things. It's not a pass interference kind of call.
It's hit somebody 5 yards out of bounds. You run your mouth after the play. How are you as fans going to sit back and say, "Oh, well, they're calling the game for the Saints"? When we bitched 2 weeks or 18 days ago, 18, 19, a week and a half ago, when we bitched and raised Cain about the officials' calls, it was about calls that either were or were not made during the play, like the ticky-tack call they made on Marshawn Lattimore. Pass interference on Julio Jones. That could have gone either way.
The phantom roughing the passer call.
Yeah,
where,
that.
Sheldon Rankins barely touched him.
You can look at the still photo of the Michael Thomas play where the guy almost poked his eye out and there was no play called. The guy had a hold of his face mask.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got, what, 7 officials on the field? 5, 6, something like that.
There's 7. I believe it's 7. But and that's the thing. I mean, that again, we're talking about this acting like the Saints will get into bad calls and the Falcons this time would calls they deserve. But I'm just saying it was pre-snap penalties.
Legit.
It was a lot. It was. Well, and the calls were legit against the Saints too, except for, in my opinion, except for the roughing the passer call, which extended the Falcons' drive. The calls were legit. I was just upset they weren't making them both sides defensively. It was offensive penalties that were hurting Atlanta. Them from getting the big to run. It was throwing their offense behind schedule, which is something I always talk about on this show. When you get behind schedule, that's how you end up. I think they were like 0 for 7 in the first half. Let me see my stats page. I had it pulled up earlier. The Falcons were like 0 for 7. I know they were 0 for in the first half. They finished for the game with 2 for 13 on third downs.
Yeah,
and that's how you.
I remember the play where they did it.
Yeah,
it was a run by Devontae Freeman.
Third down
before they ever converted a third down.
And it's offensive penalties putting you back 10 yards. I mean, they were at one point they were what, 1st and 40.
Yeah,
that was early. So, I mean, those are the mistakes in converting third downs. I don't care what plays, what kind of offense you have. I don't care what receivers you have. You're not converting. I think it was 3rd and 30 at one point. I think they picked up 10 yards in 2 plays. It was 3rd and 30. You're not going to convert that. And that's what was happening to the Falcons here. We're not getting those 3rd and short plays, not converting those 3rd down plays, and getting those chunk plays that keep opening up your playbook. And that's what was hurting the Falcons. And it was those offensive penalties, not the refs just to win this game. I don't care what they say about that. Went 3 of 3. So, we weren't doing much to take a swallow there. I saw another breakdown on the penalties, but I can't find it anymore. But to me, that was the key of the game. Offensive penalty, you get behind and down in the distance, you suddenly can't get that offense to work because now you're making yourself one-dimensional. And the Saints' strength right now is defending the pass. When you can't open that playbook up, and you're trying to throw against Marshawn Lattimore, Ken Crawley, and you can generate that pass rush because we got 5 sacks on Matt Ryan. You can get that pass rush going where you get Cam Jordan with 2 critical sacks on the 3rd down. You stuff the Falcons on forcing a turnover. That's how you lose ball games, and that's really how the Falcons lost this game. They beat themselves too often. Mistakes. Hopefully we can get a lot better against Tampa. We can play with that same kind of defensive intensity. I think Tampa is going to give us a fight in the first half. Can clamp down and make Jameis Winston try and beat us with his arm terribly in that first game with us, and he even got sat down second half. If we can take away the run and make Jameis Winston kind of try and beat us with his arm, we'll find a way to lose. That's just been a MO. They will find a way. Hopefully we have a nice game where we have to sweat it out a lot of Atlanta game. Here come for the Bucs and have a chance to upset us.
Yeah, I've noticed over the past several years that the Bucs always play us tough in New Orleans, and we manage to win. That's all I'll say. We manage to pull one out usually when we go to Tampa. So I'm looking for that trend to sort of continue.
Tampa than we do in New Orleans for whatever reason.
Yeah,
they beat us in New Orleans.
Yeah, and that goes all
2009. We went. Yeah, even in 2009, we go and we're 13-0, and we lose to Dallas at home, Tampa Bay at home. So it's one of those things. Well, we played. No, that was. Yeah, we did. We played at Carolina. But that was a game where that was one of those preseason games. I think we sat down Shockey. We sat Breeze down. That game kind of pissed me off a little bit because Breeze had this consecutive streak going of starts since 2006. And because we didn't start him in that game, whole game, his consecutive start streak, say that 3 times, ended that game, because we played Mark Brunell as a start of that whole ball game. So I kind of wanted the Saints to play one series, or at least Breeze gets one snap where he hands off the ball just to keep it going. Symbolic.
We rant and rave a lot about how the NFL screws it up. I just want to go on record as having said this is one thing that the NFL got right. These division games in the last 2 weeks of the season, it's spectacular, and it's the way that it should be.
Yep, I agree. My dad was going on about that, and talking about wondering why everybody wasn't playing divisional games these last couple of weeks. And I'm like, well, Dad, we played the Jets last week, so we're not playing all divisional games. I said there'll be all divisional games this weekend, but my dad was in a rare moods. Christmas Day, he had been drinking most of the days, so he was pontificating. You think I'm bad? Let my dad get on here for a while.
We need to line that man up.
Oh, he's 76 years old. He'd be a trip on this thing.
Oh, I'd love to meet your dad, man.
Oh, he knows a lot. It's just he's one of those guys, and the type. He likes to say things like, journalist. That's right. That's what I said. Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah. So my dad's a great guy, though. I mean, he's been in his work field, and he still works field since 1965, and he's a legend. Everyone knows him. Man's forgotten more about his field than most people will ever learn. You give him something, he'll tell you the history of it, who used to sell it to, what they did with it, all this stuff. So he knows his stuff. It's just, when it comes to football and other things, he just kind of just says things. Just whatever's on his mind, he says it. So, yeah, he's 76 years old. He'll be 76 in January. He just wanted to be that age. You don't give a rat's ass what anyone has to say anymore. He one last thing about my dad. He actually got to go to Super Bowls. He went to the Super Bowl. Everyone that was in New Orleans. He went to Super Bowl 4, Super Bowl 6, Super Bowl 9. The three that were in Tulane Stadium. He didn't go to the Super Bowl. Was because he thought the tickets were too expensive. I think the tickets were $50 expensive in 1977. But the thing that of the stories of him going to the Super Bowl 9 played in Tulane Stadium, was supposed to be played in the Superdome, but it wasn't finished yet. It wasn't ready. And a cold front, a typical Louisiana cold front, came through that morning. So it had stormed all night. So it was like 78 degrees, I think, or 75 degrees on Saturday. That night, the cold front comes through. It's got that North Arctic wind blowing about 20, 25 miles an hour, and it was like a 30-degree temperature change. It's like in the 40s, wet, that damp cold, the wind's blowing, and my dad's drinking ice cold beer. And my neighbor, my best friend from when I was a kid, the dad went with my dad. And he's like, "Ow, how the hell can you be drinking ice cold beer? I'm freezing out here," because it's open air scene. My dad's like, "Man, it's never too cold to drink a beer." So it's just his attitude. I've told this story before too, and this will be one that John Butler will remember when he does his post analysis. And I promise we'll finish up the game after this, or finish up the show after this. But he played a round of golf with some friends, and they love telling me the story with his friends in the summertime. And he tells, I come into the clubhouse, and he says, "Give me 2 beers." And the girl says, "I can only serve 1 beer at a time." He says, "Well, let me tell you what you're going to do. You give me my first beer. You're going to put it down in front of me. You're going to go straight to the back, go to the bar, give me my second beer. By the time you come back with my second beer, this one will be empty." That's not going to happen. He says, "Trust me. Go." Sure enough, she comes walking back with a second longer. He takes the first one and puts it and waiting for you. That's my dad.
One of these days, I'm going to have to meet Mr. Allen.
In the French Quarter one time, walked I want to say about a mile and a half with a broken leg. He broke his it was in his shin. I believe it was his shin bone. But he broke it, and this is on his right leg. Got in this truck with a broken leg, drove home, pulled up in the driveway, and had to call my mom and says, "We gotta take me to the hospital. I can't get out of the truck." And the doctor's like, "I don't know how the hell you even drove with a broken leg." And that's his drive. That's your foot that you use the accelerator for. That's the leg he broke. So that's what he's driving with. So yeah, that's tough, man. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I'm just trying to come to terms with the fact that I'm fixing to turn, as my 8-year-old daughter Anna, and she said, "Dad, how old are you?" And I said, "Well, baby, 3 weeks from today, I'll turn 50." And she said, "Did you say 50?" I said, yeah, babe." She sat there and
she did the math.
Looked out. She starts counting fingers. She said, "Dad, you do realize that that's like half of 100, right?" I said, yeah, baby, I'm real aware of that. And she said, "That's old." Thank you, sweetheart.
Oh, my age then, because I'm wearing right here. This is my Christmas shirt. And I wanted it with the 50 patch because I wanted a 50th anniversary jersey. So I got this Ingram jersey with the 50 patch on it. And my daughter, my middle one, the first thing she says, "Hey, look, it's your age right there on the jersey." Yeah. Kick your butt. And see, she's here right now. She's at my house. My son's here. My daughter's still here, so if she watches this podcast, I don't know if she's watching it right now, but if she's watching, she's going to go, yeah. So we're going to get some stuff. Okay. So we've talked a lot about the playoffs. We talked about different scenarios. The big thing that we have to have happen, of course, we have to win the division, because if we lose, a lot trickier for us to win the division. And I believe Carolina wins outright because they will have a better divisional record than we do. Conference record. Yeah, better overall record. Okay. And so that's the key. We have to win. We win. Last week I said we were going to win by 10. We did win by 10. I think we'll win by 10 again this week, at least 10. Ingram and Kamara have a great game against Tampa. I think Tampa gives us a good fight early, but I think, like I said before, they'll find a way to lose because that's just what they do at this point. If we jump on them early, I think that they probably fold their tents up and they're just waiting for the season to end, especially if we're up by, 3 scores, 17 points, something like that. I think you'll see Tampa just kind of, let's just get this over with. As if they have the stage full. Honestly, I think there'll be more Saints fans and Bucs fans. At some points in the game, it's probably going to sound more like a Saints home game, than a Tampa game, especially if the Saints jump on them early.
Everybody loves a winner.
That's playing out for Tampa right now.
It's just a bad time.
I beat Atlanta this week.
I'm having a hard time. I'm really, really struggling with how to cap that one. I can make an argument for Carolina, and then I can make an argument for Atlanta, and they both seem to cancel each other out. I just, that is a really, really hard game for me to try to pick one.
Mm-hmm.
From.
I agree.
I hope they kill each other.
It's not going to happen, but it would be fun if Cam Newton gets knocked out of the game and, play with, who the hell's that backup again? The guy used to be with the Cleveland Browns.
Anderson.
Derek Anderson, the guy used to be with the Cleveland Browns. It'd be nice to have him because, again, I think the way you beat Carolina is you take away the run and make Carolina throw the ball. We'll talk about that though next week when we see how the playoff season actually goes. But I just don't feel like looking at Atlanta again. I don't want to have to face Julio Jones again. I think Carolina's also out for revenge because they play in Atlanta, and it was last year that Julio had like 300 yards receiving.
Yeah.
And Matt Ryan threw for 500 yards in that game, if I remember right.
Something like that.
I think that there's a bit of revenge on Carolina's mind. We'll see. It's going to be a great game. I hope they kill each other. I really don't want to have to deal with a fully. In fact, that was a statistic. I'm sorry to keep jumping all over the place. I was just in the voice of the Saints brought up. You know how the Saints have so many players in the reserve. I think they've got 8 or 9 players in IR. The Falcons have 0.
Really?
Who's been out for the entire year? Yes. I mean, they might have some people in the reserve, but no starters who have been out for the year. So, at this point, I think for the Saints to advance, Carolina is a much better matchup right now than Atlanta. Because it was such an emotional game for the Saints. And time potentially be 6 weeks. That's just a lot. That takes a lot out of you. I just like the idea of playing a familiar foe in Carolina. You know what you're going to get. Play offense is methodical, and that's something our defense is built to stop. They have a hard time dealing with Alvin Kamara. They have no matchup for him. And Mark Ingram gives them trouble. Line is Carolina's front 4. Card, of course. Kuechly's probably. Luke Kuechly, probably the in the NFL. Both playing the NFC South. Big reason why the NFC South is the best division in football. Because you've got some of the best players in all of football in that one division, and they're not all on the same team. New England, like you have in the AFC. So that's just how I see it. Any final thoughts, Sean?
Go Saints.
There you go.
No, we're on the cusp of doing something that I think this team is fully capable of doing, fully equipped to do, and we have to be about the business, be about our business, and that starts with Tampa Bay on Sunday. Whatever happens from that point happens, and we have no control over that. It's just a matter of preparing for whatever comes up in front of us. And as you alluded to earlier, people have the mistaken notion that what Alan and I do is so much easier when this team wins. No. When the team loses, we have a laundry list of stuff to talk about. When the team wins, it's like we sound like a broken record. Hey, we did good. We did this right. We did this right. This player was good. You follow a team when they're winning. It feels really good to be a day removed from Christmas, and the Saints to be not only a really good team, but irrelevant in the postseason conversation. That's something that we haven't seen since 11, 13, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Well, it'll be the first time since 1992 if the Saints win Sunday. First time since 1992 the Saints have won 12 games. Now they've won 13 twice in 09 and 11. But they haven't won 12 games since 1992. That was the last year of the Dome Patrol, which was 12-4 as well. So it's a big number. Rather in 2011, I'd much rather go in at 12-4. Team looks better for the franchise. I think we win. Like I said, I think we win this game, and I think we end up being the 4th seed. But we'll see what happens in the Rams. We'll talk all about that next week when we profile the playoff picture, and we'll go through again where everybody falls. We'll see what's the easiest way. Then we'll talk about even the AFC, who we would like the Saints to face in the Super Bowl if we make it that far of the 6 teams in the AFC. So we'll talk about all that next week after we beat the Bucs. So for Sean Williams and myself, thank you guys for watching. Next week, it'll be the day after New Year's, the bowl games. Sugar Bowl should be a great one. Alabama, Clemson 3. Got your lightsaber. I see that. So everybody, a happy New Year. It's be great. Guys, on the day after New Year.